July saw even more potential Game of the Year contenders with some awesome pixel art titles, action roguelites, strategy roguelites, shooters, exploration games, and much more. So let's begin with Demonic Mahjong, a game which transforms the classic Tau game into a roguelite deck builder, but of course adds a bilateral style scoring system to make things interesting. If it looks intimidating, don't be, since there are essentially suits of tiles and you're making 3 of a kind or 3 in sequence combinations, but with the bilateral style scoring and node-based roguelite map, changes things up just enough to be different. You can summon spirit allies and activate active and passive abilities, use offerings to manipulate your hand, and even has special Tau variants for more insane scoring, with a neat Chinese underworld theme, and of course, anime waifus, so if you love to see numbers go up, this will be your game. Speaking of numbers go up, Astro Prospector is an incremental bullet hell mining game where your ship is mining coffee roids to extract astro coffee seeds, using these for upgrades which then feed into the bullet hell dodging and shooting as you take on waves of enemies. It's an interesting mix with a large skill tree, simultaneously making you overpowered while also throwing a ton of enemies and projectiles at you, and again, is part of a growing trend of completable incremental games, which is interesting to see. This video is brought to you by Bang Bang Barrage, an action roguelite shooter where the recoil from every shot fired moves your boat in the opposite direction. As such, you need to master this new movement mechanic to get out of the way of enemy projectiles, while simultaneously using your weapons to take them out. The game takes place in fixed arenas, and in roguelite fashion will allow you to select from randomized upgrades and buffs during a run, enhancing your build. Then, of course, there's the whole multiplayer aspect, where up to 4 players can team up in split screen or online co-op, sharing a single boat whose momentum is jointly controlled, adding chaos and coordination. And will also have a PvP mode, looking like fun with friends. So if interested, the game is available right now on Steam, so you can buy it via the link in the description below. FUMES is a single-player vehicular combat action game that has you controlling a customized vehicle packed with weapons as you battle your way across a vast post-apocalyptic wasteland. Vehicles range from muscle cars to converted beat-up clunkers to trucks, vans, and more, where you can slap on machine guns, shotguns, or saw blades, and to then go ham on your enemies. The driving and controls feel great, and some people have likened it to Twisted Metal in a good way, with there being giant boss vehicles to battle as well. The wasteland is procedurally generated and quite forgiving, in the sense that you respawn where you blew up with just the loss of cargo, losing a little bit of what you had earned from destroying enemies, and has made an impressive first step in early access, with more to come, including a proper story, lore, missions, and more, but for now, it's just a solid action game. A pleasant surprise is Last Report, a relatively small pixel art horror title where you play as a night shift park ranger stationed in a national park, tasked with reviewing camera footage and photo reports of wildlife activity while a dark mystery unfolds under your watch. You toggle between pictures and videos seen on your computer, as well as some creepy observations in your office as well, choosing what to do when presented with evidence in a manner similar to Papers, Please, with your decision affecting the outcome of the story. You will get to know and talk to your fellow rangers, where things are definitely not as they seem, having excellent sound design and pixel art, and is a good game. YouTuber and now game developer Mark Brown of Game Maker's Toolkit also released Wordplay last month, a roguelite word puzzle game that takes word spelling games and adds a bilateral-like twist to it, where you have special perks and colored tiles that grant different bonuses, which increases your score. There's a target score to beat in every round, escalating in difficulty, with strategy in the form of letter tiles which are limited and do get expended when used. The clever thing about word games like this is that due to the various bonuses, the longest or most complicated words might not be the optimal move, since there are downstream implications, giving it more variance, which can be fun. A clever take on the city builder is Let Them Trade, which looks like a tabletop board game in the vein of Catan, where you are put in charge of not just one city or town, but a whole kingdom of them, strategically improving accessibility between towns so you can let them trade. The towns are all autonomous and do not need micromanagement, so it's a kind of macro-scale, larger picture strategy where you establish cities on resource-rich tiles, allowing them to specialize in farming, woodcutting, fishing, and so on, and then connect them up with roads or bridges for trade to occur. Trade generates taxes that fills your coffers, and happier towns result in better yield and greater income. As you progress, a research tree unlocks new production buildings, resource upgrades, and transport enhancements, but beware of bandits, using your knights and constructing defensive structures in order to fend them off. There's a campaign and also a free-form sandbox mode, along with a built-in scenario editor for plenty of replayability, so you could easily spend hours in this charming, toy-like world. Phantom Squad is a 1-to-4 player top-down tactical shooter that mixes real-time action with deliberate planning. Each mission begins with a strategizing phase as you plan your approach, marking entry points, routes to take, objectives, and enemies before breaching rooms. Once the action starts, every bullet counts, where you have to be accurate since there is friendly fire and you could easily get hostages killed. Your team will have access to specialized gadgets like a heartbeat sensor or drones and traps, with the game making you change your strategy on the fly to adapt to the situation on the ground. If you play solo, you are the one issuing orders to your squad, while on the other hand, full co-op means absolute chaos, being a nice mix of Rainbow Six or SWAT, with Hotline Miami, and is certainly worth a play. We also have the early access release of Gold Adventure Gold, a colony sim reverse RPG where gold makes god. You play as the divine steward of a settlement, attracting adventurers to help you by tempting them with gold so that they can gather resources, build amenities, and fight monsters to help you out, resembling the Majesty games. You're building a settlement by adding structures such as farms and guild halls, creating quests with the right incentives so that the adventurers take these on, hunting down monsters or exploring, shaping your settlement along the way. The heroes act on their own accord and have their own personalities, adding colour and flavour to the world. There's also a powerful pet god beast, which you can raise, feed and pet, or discipline if necessary, drawing from the Black and White series, which also has a giant animal, with its personality being shaped by your actions. So if you love god games, this will be worth a look. Islanders New Shores is the follow-up to an insanely popular, relaxing city builder, one which did spawn a subgenre of its own and continues the minimalist city building gameplay loop, but with a few new enhancements that increases strategy without sacrificing calm. You build on procedurally generated islands, selecting and placing structures, scoring depending on placement rules. For example, windmills score more near wheat fields or lumberjack near trees. There's a minimum score to meet to get more buildings, otherwise it will be game over, but it's just relaxing enough that you can sit back, chill, and try again. The sequel introduces boons, one-time power-ups like duplicating a building, which adds tactical flexibility, with both the regular high-score mode as well as freeform sandbox with no limitations, with the all-important photo mode so that you can take awesome screenshots of your creations. A turn-based tactical roguelite of interest is Day of the Shell, centered around its signature one-click, one-turn system that on one hand simplifies the action down to a single input per turn, but at the same time makes it more tactical, resulting in a cleverly made title that does move quite quickly for a tactics game. Our lone huntress protagonist has to traverse shattered, flooded islands, hoping to reach its heart, destroy the shell and appease the gods. Use your revolver to take out enemies while choosing from blessings offered to you, which will change your build for the run. There are permanent upgrades between runs, giving you just a little bit more juice for your next attempt, looking pretty good as well, and is for tactics fans. One of the most impressive point-and-click adventure games in recent memory is The Drifter, framed as a tense thriller with an intriguing central mystery. You play as Mick Carter, a drifter who witnesses a murder and is killed himself, only to wake up moments before his death and framed for the one he witnessed, having to go on a quest to unravel a conspiracy. The pixel art is gorgeous, not surprising since it comes to us from developer Power Hove, who you might know from Crawl, where you collect items, interrogate characters, and piece together clues. For what it's worth, the developers talk about fast-paced storytelling, avoiding filler and keeping the story moving as you go from scene to scene with cinematic camera cuts and is film-like in moments. For the most part, the adventure game puzzles are quite intuitive and make sense, with excellent voice acting as well, so if you love this genre, do yourself a favor and pick this up. Another pleasant surprise is the great Villainess strategy of Lily, a turn-based strategy game where our two protagonists, Scarlet and Lily, were framed for regicide and are now fugitives, having to then declare war on the Empire and to fight their generals. This takes place on an overworld map where the supply lines linking armies to cities are shown, and disrupting said lines will deplete enemy morale and give you an advantage in combat. You have the use of an airship which can move freely, using it to strategically disrupt the enemy and perhaps to spearhead a counter-attack. Battles then zoom into a battlefield with representations of the generals and units on screen, with positioning and army composition determining the result of battle. Interestingly, you're able to recruit enemy generals to your side or to execute them, with the first resulting in the so-called good ending, while the latter pushes our main characters towards becoming demon queens, having good pixel art and fantastic anime-style art. We also had the 1.0 release of Drill Core, a planetary mining roguelite that blends resource management, tower defense, and strategic automation into a tight gameplay loop. You control a mining colony that digs into the planet's crust, directing workers to extract resources during the day to build and upgrade, or in preparation for night, where aliens descend from above. You're assigning various types of workers to their jobs, but have to beware of friendly fire and accidental cave-ins which will kill your workers. The types of turrets that you build will matter greatly in the defense, with a bunch of upgrades and research to unlock as you progress. There's also a nice variety of planets and different biomes, each with different resources, hazards, and enemies, and even if your colony for the run gets destroyed, you do escape with some precious resources to be used in the meta progression, which makes you stronger. This has released a number of updates while in early access, which has paid off for them, so if you have been waiting, now is the time to jump in. Exploration and discovery in games is very important to me, which is why Wheel World got my attention, coming to us from the developer of Nidhogg, but is a very different kind of game. This is an open world cycling title, where you play as a rider chosen by a ghost to recover legendary bike parts stolen by rival gangs in order to complete the Great Shift ritual. The island is fully explorable, with roads, trails, and shortcuts leading to races, time trials, and hidden collectibles. Locomotion is momentum-based, where drafting behind other riders increases your boost meter, and with enough speed, you may just be able to jump over gaps in the terrain. Bike customization plays a central role, with parts affecting stats like speed, grip, and handling, letting you tailor your ride to your preferred play style. Winning races and completing challenges earns reputation, which unlocks the ability to challenge gang leaders to reclaim the stolen parts, so while I'm not a bicycle person in real life, the exploration and world design is awesome and a joy to be in. Another pleasant surprise is Fretless: The Wrath of Riffson, a turn-based JRPG set in a world of music, with combat designed around musical deck building, as well as active turn-based combat where you have to hit buttons in line with the timing. You play as Rob, a guitarist fighting to stop an evil record label, building a deck of riffs that act as attacks, buffs, and debuffs, using these in turn-based combat to take on a number of enemies who are also musically themed. Instruments function like character classes, each with unique riff types and mechanics, but otherwise, it is quite a standard but well-made RPG with exploration, NPCs to talk to, treasure chests, hidden secrets, and fantastic pixel art as well. YouTuber Rob Scallon is involved in this project, which would have given it an unfair marketing advantage over another game, but still, they did have to make a good game, and it is, so definitely give this a go. While using the Ninja Gaiden IP, Ninja Gaiden Ragebound is technically made by Spanish indie developer The Game Kitchen, best known for Blasphemous and their pixel art. taking their talents and applying it to a world of ninjas and demons. This is a side-scrolling 2D action platformer that brings classic Ninja Gaiden gameplay into the modern age, not quite as punishing as the old games, but is still a challenge, in which you fluidly chain acrobatic sword slashes with dodge rolls, wall climbs and air dashes. There's also a second playable character with different mechanics, which you can then switch to or mix and match to get through later stages. This is almost The Messenger-like in some ways, and it's funny how things come full circle since The Messenger itself has to be inspired by Ninja Gaiden, so while you can revisit levels, for the most part this is a linear playthrough and offers something different to the more popular Metroidvania design. One of the most impressive releases of the month is Hell Clock, a roguelite action RPG with a timer, and is a dark fantasy retelling of Brazil's War of Canudos. You are descending into hell, battling through procedurally generated dungeon floors in hopes of reclaiming your mentor's soul, fighting enemies in fast-paced real-time combat using melee weapons, ranged firearms, and special abilities tied to relics. It has been described as Hades meets Diablo or Path of Exile with a loot-driven gameplay loop as you experiment with builds in every run and aimed to condense the action RPG experience into 20 to 30 minute runs. A skill tree provides persistent upgrades between runs, unlocking new abilities, improving relic capacity and extending available time, having a 3-act story to play through as well as an endgame ascension system, and is a must-play for roguelite fans. We also had the 1.0 release of The Wandering Village, a city-building survival game set on the back of a massive roaming creature called Onbu, where you must manage a growing settlement while adapting to constantly changing environments. You can construct farms, housing, workshops, and resource production buildings on Onbu's back, using limited space as efficiently as possible as the creature moves through biomes that alter crop viability and resource availability. Survival depends on balancing food production, water storage, and medicine, while also managing air filtration and scavenger expeditions to collect rare materials. Onbu's health and trust are critical, where feeding it, curing illness, or avoiding harmful terrain keeps it cooperative, while neglect can cause it to ignore commands or to endanger your village. A research tree unlocks advanced infrastructure, new crops, and upgraded production chains, letting you adapt to hazards like toxic spores or droughts, being a great game in this genre that has put this developer on the map. A very curious title is He Is Coming, a roguelike RPG auto-battler where you control a hero character moving about the map, searching for loot and battling enemies while preparing for the threat of the Demon King, taking on a sequence of approaching bosses every 3 in-game days, chosen from a pool of over 30 with unique mechanics. During the day, you explore a procedurally generated map to collect powerful weapons, armor, and artifacts, each affecting stats like speed, damage, or armor, or granting special abilities like lifesteal or poison. When you do get into combat, it resolves automatically, resembling an auto-battler like Super Auto Pets or Backpack Battles, so the emphasis is on the equipment, with limited item slots that expand as you progress. Between runs, completing challenges unlocks new equipment for future playthroughs, but does not have that leveling up kind of progression, which is kind of old school but neat. Zachtronics is back. Kind of, with Kaizen, a factory story, coming to us from Coincidence, a new studio formed by many of the people from Zachtronics, with the objective of making things beyond just games, but this is a similar kind of open-ended puzzle automation game like their previous titles such as Opus Magnum. Set in 1980s Japan, you play as a newly hired engineer tasked with designing efficient assembly lines for iconic consumer electronics using tools like robotic arms, drills, welders, cutters, and more as you program a visual timeline to manipulate components, pushing, pulling, rotating, cutting, and joining to create products like camcorders, calculators, and arcade cabinets. Each level challenges your ability to optimize production with both precision and speed, and your solutions are ranked on a global leaderboard based on efficiency, space, and economic cost. For variety, It has a built-in pachinko-themed solitaire minigame which offers a playful diversion between puzzles and is for fans of the genre. Stealth games are difficult to come by, which makes Eric's Home the stolen dream of interest, especially if you love the genre and want more of it, although it is a $40 game, so depending on your budget, you might want to wait for a sale. This isometric, narrative-driven stealth game is set in a richly detailed Nordic-inspired city, telling a tale of Hannah on a quest to find her missing brother. Eventually, you will get control of 3 characters, each possessing unique traversal tools and stealth skills, having to use them in tandem to progress the story. Hannah crawls through vents and uses sleep darts to silently incapacitate enemies, while Elva climbs drain pipes and throws pebbles to distract, and Sebastian can swim and quietly take down guards. Levels are carefully crafted stealth puzzles with preset guard paths and visibility zones, so progression relies on timing, environmental observation, and using abilities at the right time. If spotted, you are reset to the previous checkpoint, which is relatively forgiving, checking all the boxes that I look for in a stealth game and is good. Myco Punk is a cooperative first-person shooter which is pretty good, where up to 4 players control robots and the new Atlas Hazard crew, taking on missions to eradicate aggressive fungal infestations in the galaxy. Select the class, each with unique movement tools such as grappling poles or wingsuits, along with a customizable loadout of weapons and power tools that can be upgraded through a unique hex grid system. It has fast-paced, intense action in very strange, otherworldly, and some might say undecipherable landscapes, with an old-school charm to it as you battle enemies and bosses while getting loot out the wazoo. It is very heavily Deep Rock Galactic inspired, but with a dose of Diablo and Borderlands for good measure, with a variety of missions to complete as well as a hub area with NPCs to chill out and prepare for the next mission. Definitely being best with friends and is not that great solo, with it going well so far in early access, so I cannot wait to see where this will land. We also had the 1.0 release of Back to the Dawn, a prison escape simulation RPG where you play as either Thomas, a Fox reporter framed for uncovering corruption, or Bob, a Black Panther undercover cop, each with their own 20-hour plus storyline and unique events and escape paths. You have 21 in-game days to navigate the maximum security Boulderton prison, forming alliances with inmates and gangs, completing over 100 handcrafted objectives, and gathering clues to engineer your breakout through one of multiple possible escape routes. Every choice affects your relationships with the other characters and the final outcome, with branching paths tied to decisions like bribing guards, digging tunnels, or aligning with different factions. It has something like 48 unique inmate characters and several possible endings, resulting in a ton of replay value, where the Black Panther storyline was added in 1.0, which effectively doubled the size of the game, which is impressive and is a must-play for 2025. The King is Watching sucked up a bunch of my time in July, being a roguelite city builder defense game where you need to train your gaze on buildings in order for them to work, whether it be training units or producing resources. You need resources like water, wheat, wood, and gold in order to construct buildings, purchase upgrades, or train troops, which would then be necessary to take on oncoming waves of enemies which approach from the right, with random events and decisions to make as you struggle to survive and to defeat the very powerful bosses. There is an extensive meta progression system which players have taken issue with, since you are grinding out an upgrade currency to spend in town for permanent upgrades or new king characters with special abilities. It is quite a grind to unlock and see everything in this game, with there being multiple difficulty levels per map, but it seems to be just 2 biomes at the moment. However, I can easily see this being expanded upon despite not being an early access title, and I do especially love the ultra minimalist pixel art which has not gone out of style just yet, so indie developers, you know what to do. Oftentimes, you can tell that games are going to be special even while in early access, as was the case with Dead Cells and Slay the Spire, and now also Abiotic Factor, a first-person survival crafting game but where you don't just punch trees to get wood, but punch wooden crates instead. It's a seemingly small distinction, but the whole underground laboratory setting similar to Black Mesa from Half-Life is what makes this unique, where you play as not Gordon Freeman, but a regular scientist trying to survive in a world of anomalies and incoming military types sent for containment, with the 1.0 release coinciding with the Cold Fusion update, which adds a bunch of stuff, and they do have a post-launch roadmap as well, being a great time to dive in and should be one of those ongoing games like Grounded, Palworld or Valheim, which you can just play with friends indefinitely. Watch this video for more of the best indie games.
Maybe it's simply our turn.